Let us take a moment and party with Moy. So, as far as this program goes, I feel that I'm not qualified to do any sort of tutorials in this program, but I can at least show my casual usage of it. So we're just going to just kind of play with a workflow that I have fun with. Let's try that again. Offset's one of my favorites. You know, I always talk about offset in Blender. It's just as good over in Moy. And I also like going in and building things out of lines. You know, just being able to right click to restart the tool. There's a lot of things about Moy that I enjoy. Like, there's not a lot of programs that can actually be used one-handed. And really not any. But with this program you can. In fact, being able to go in and adjust the options kind of on the fly is also pretty cool. So let's press minus and hide that. Let's get rid of that as well. And just start having some fun with things. You know, a lot of people will argue that surfaces is definitely the superior way to work, and, you know, not trying to actually get started on that debate, but I find that surfaces are often fun until they are no longer fun. You know, it's all fun and games getting in and filling in surfaces and building things until you start running into some of the issues. I'm just not quite competent in how to troubleshoot effectively, and usually that's my success meter, is if I'm able to troubleshoot when failure happens. And with CAD software, whenever I fail on a surface, it's just another story. But I still go in and try the same examples over and over just to kind of test myself and just make sure that I'm sane. But Moy is one of those programs that, like ZBrush, I will probably always love just because of the simplicity. It takes just a minute to use. And the strange thing about Moy too is, in order to really get the most worth out of it, you have to configure it pretty heavily. And so, you know, my first issues with Moy were really in the ability to understand how to use everything. And so once I obtained Chip's configuration on his way into Blender, it became a lot more straightforward for me. So that's something that I think is like on his blog or something, but that's the configuration that I use whenever it comes to just using Moy. So we're just getting in here, having some fun, you know, real basic stuff, just joining surfaces and fusing. And it's just great. Like I said, this program's like my ZBrush, so basically my second love. If things didn't work out with Blender, it would be ZBrush and Moy. But, and when I say don't work out, I mean Blender would have to change in a radical direction that I'm unable to get calibrated to. So with this piece, I ended up with this large offset, which I used to always wonder what it meant to get these. However, now I know that the reason that Moy gives you this is so that you can perform operations on it. So I'm just experimenting right now, seeing if I can try this again. Actually, I'm going to delete this face that I created up here. You know, Moy needs that alt click where you can see exactly what's going on, but let's try this another way. I'm just going to draw a rectangle on the surface, and let's grab it, extrude it up. And one of these is our top view. So we'll just grab this, press B, select this, cut it out, and we end up with that. So we can then select this wedge, or let's actually select this object, press U for Boolean, and then union it together. and we can just get rid of that. So by merging that piece in, we were able to just really make that area work, which that's one of the areas of Moi that I seek to understand better, is how to troubleshoot when issues occur. So we're going to select this, we'll press B and set up a Boolean, delete this. When it comes to mirroring, this is the process that you use for mirroring. So the more and more you mirror, the more insane it starts to drive you, but that's just Moi. So I'm going to press minus to hide this so we can delete that. Press minus to bring it all back. And in my usage of Moi, I've started to become acquainted with the scene browser, at least for turning off curves when I don't need them to display. So we can just union this back together, and we're able to continue on with our shape. So just a real quick just demonstration of just how I use Moi on a cursory level, because it is definitely a part of my daily workflow. But whenever it comes to Moi, its uses as far as being a required tool are a little less than what they used to be. Let's see, we want to there we go. Just one of the interesting curiosities about Moi is the way that you move your origin on the fly in order to do transforms. Something I still don't entirely understand. Every time I use this program, I learn a little bit more. In fact, for this session, it's kind of memorable that I was even able to survive that previous operation where I did those merges. Normally that's something that doesn't work out. However, because of a Instagram post I saw from Vitaly, it gave me some insight to exactly what it means whenever you receive those big overlapping pieces. It means, hey, you're going to need to fix that yourself, buddy. And you know what? I can rock with that. So let us continue. I'm just going to let's try to grab this face, and I'm just going to control drag it out, looking at this view where we have straight snap on, and we can just extrude that. Most of the keys are pretty basic, at least as far as my configuration is concerned. So why is this all together? Let's click away, grab it. Alright, so we ended up extruding out from the original. This is where Moi tends to start driving me a little crazy, because I don't have to deal with this. That sounds really bad, but I don't. Like, if I need to grab a face, Blender's got my back. So let us just press minus and hide that. I'm sure there's a better way, but I'm old. That's all I can say. I'm old, and therefore I give up. Not even I give up, but sometimes I just go with just caveman solutions for doing things, because I just ain't got time. So I want to move this down, but you see by clicking a corner that the pivot point moves, and then I'm able to do so. So let us go in and freeform, begin drawing our curve. And begin creating a finger groove, a terrible finger groove. By showing points, we can actually get in and start making some edits, but for this we need to move this curve above so we can actually see what's going on when we look at it from this view, and then we can go in and show points and just have some fun with it. Like I said, we're just being a little random with Moi. I didn't even plan out what I was going to do with it. I was just thinking just now, I should just record a random video using Moi, just so people know that I still like this little program. People might also ask, why not Fusion 360? And I would say it's because they changed their licensing scheme, and I don't want to buy it. I don't want to give Adobe any money. If I have to give anyone money, I'll give it to these guys because it's probably just one guy and he probably needs it, versus, you know, buying it from Adobe and watching them change their license next year, or ask for more money, or put a situation on my files. You know, it's terrible when you have to pay a program just to open a file. So most people are like, yeah, that's the tax of life, I could live with it. I just can't. You know, I'd rather just forget about NURBS and surfaces and all that stuff than buy Fusion 360, but that's just me. The program is impressive, which makes me sad because I spent a lot of time getting acquainted with it, and so in the end it just I downloaded an update and it was just different. That's all I could say. So our terrible result that we got, in fact, we don't even have to work, we don't have to be like that, we don't have to live like that, guys. In fact, because we're in Moi, we can actually work like differently in a way that I wouldn't work in Blender. Like, for example, let's start off filleting this. You know, I almost want to call everything a bevel because I'm just so used to it. But this system of working, I always ponder it. I'm like, I wonder what it'd be like if in Blender I had users clicking and dragging to make a line in order to do a bevel. You know, it works here, but if I did it on the Blender side, I would consider that very pro level, and most people would complain. So don't even come at me about that. It's just, you know, I always say, let these guys be, man. You know, people are like, why don't you be like these guys? I'm like, come on, let them be. You know, why do you always got to want someone to be like another person? It doesn't have to be that way. However, there are some formalities I feel that have been established like 50 years ago by Photoshop that should probably be default in all software packages, like spacebar to translate. But, you know, Blender is just another story. I mean, that's a hard view to have, but, you know, there's so many things about Photoshop I wish that were just universal in all software, but, you know, I don't even remember anymore because it's been forgotten. So let us move this over. We'll press B. And get something like that. Alright, so continuing on with our little piece of randomness, just having fun with curves. You know, another thing I also enjoy about using Moi is being able to select a ring of edges. There's a little script that allows you to select a continuous ring. That actually isn't built into the program. That always, I found that interesting. But, you know, that just be life. Let's extrude it from both sides because just like me in Solidify. However, the lack of responsivity here. Also, why is this telling me to wait for calculating? Let's try that again. This thing should be instantaneous. Let's cancel it. Alright, I'm going to extrude it again, but we're just going to toggle off both sides. What is this? I'm seriously not trying to make curves look bad. Make this program look bad. I'm not trying to ever make anything look bad. You know, there's some content that I wish I could put out, but, you know, usually once I have a certain amount of crashes and system issues, I just cancel because I'm not trying to put out content like that. Let's see, I just want to extrude this. You know, the thing about Moi 4 is I don't trust it yet. Yeah, I've still been using Moi 3 because Moi 3 goes hard. Also, it's very nice to be able to just copy and paste. This is what I want to do, extrude with both sides. That's all I wanted to do, extrude. I don't know what happened there. We're going to select this shape and set that up as a Boolean. Let's grab this, and let's select the ring. We can press O to offset and grab this. And with any 3D artist, I definitely recommend, you know, learning multiple programs. Like, definitely shows you around. You definitely want to be, you know, competent in what's happening in the 3D field that we're all working and living in, because otherwise you'll be pleasantly surprised. Like, I should do a video talking about ZBrush's bevel brush, but that's the next stop, is to, just catch up on all the software changes that have been happening, because my strategy with programming and understanding them is, you learn them while they're simple. Like that was my hope with Substance Painter. I was like, I'll learn this while it's simple, and then hopefully it just works out. However, Adobe bought them, so I still like them. It's just Adobe bought them. I just don't know. It happens, I guess. So let's snap to the object, and we're just going to draw a polyline. And before we even do anything, let's create our initial orientation, but we're not actually orienting to the shape itself. Where are we placing this? It's just placing it at the bottom. So let's try this a different way. I'm just going to select this entire ring. I always forget about how clicking to the left and to the right as far as dragging does different things. So, no doubt that using a lot of Blender affects my ability with using other software sometimes, but with the way that 2.9 is now, or 2.8, it's definitely as good as it's ever been for using other software. It used to be very strange to go in and left click in other programs, but now because of Blender, it's all normal. So I love trimming curves. Just selecting two curves, trimming, and right clicking and deleting is just amazing. I'm just impressed by the small stuff. Let's right click and we just begin rounding these areas off. Let's join these together where we can grab these points and just give it a subtle rounding. And same thing with this area. We can grab it, just right click, and repeat that last operation. But there's a lot of things I see that work very well for Moi. Wouldn't work so well in Blender because just different programs. You just can't force a program to be another program. Maybe you can, but that's not my game. Like I'll never go into Maya and say, hey, how can I make this feel like Blender? Because it's not Blender, it's someone else. Damn doppelganger. I don't want you to feel like my homie. I want you to feel like you. I want you to feel alien, so I'm compelled to leave. So let's just draw a rectangle on this surface, and we'll press E, and we're already pushing from both sides, meaning that we can press B, select this, just cut inside. And just looking at what we received, which, in Blender terms, I would say, we're almost about the hotline there, buddy. But in curves, such talks aren't necessary. Let's cancel that. And let's do that again. Maybe something like that. Just move along with this thing. Nothing serious here. Not trying to create a masterpiece. Just get in and just do a quick software test of messing with Moi. So aside from that issue where I had to completely change versions, like I said, Moi 4 is strange. Still getting used to it. I think 1 flips the view. Yeah, I forget these things, admittedly. So many programs, it's hard to remember sometimes. But we are just drawing some curves. Out, and let us grab all of our curves, and this one isn't even correct. That one is terrible, so let's do it again. And another thing about Moi too is Moi inspired a lot of my stuff with wanting to have it work better with the laptop, because I would use this on the laptop and I just thought, wow, this thing just works so great. Also, let's hide what we have going on because everything's just in the way. And why can I not trim this curve. Already on the same level. And let's zoom all the way in, and we see that this curve did not meet its destination. So, story of my life. Shift T, right click. Let us get in and delete this. And delete this. We can J join it all together. Let's look at our points. And this point, I didn't forget about you. Dang it. Can I select a point and delete it? I'm just looking over here to see if there's an option to, you know what, we're just going to pretend like I don't even know that that point is there. You know, we're just going to be clueless Moi users. So I'm just going to press E, which will allow me to push this both ways. Let's get rid of all curves because we don't need them. We can select these two and union them together. Grab this piece, F, you know, just being random with it. Nothing specific in mind, just, you know, I like testing this program out, making handhelds. I feel like it's a good kind of warm up of the creative juices, but also just a good tool test in general. I've made handhelds in almost every program I've gotten my hands on, just because, you know, it's just forms, just playing with forms and playing with controls for those forms. In this case, really basic form, but still, we'll go ahead and begin filleting this, just wrapping it up. And I almost didn't expect this one to work out, neither of those. You know, all these surface convergences, but we're still able to continue working. In fact, let's really push it to the limit. This is one of those cases that would definitely fail in Blender, you know, because everything's converging into a single point that meets on a flat plane. So I could see how computationally it could be difficult, but we see that here these sort of things are triviality. So there are times where we just want to just get to the end result without, I was about to start playing with the variable fillet. However, I feel that I should probably double check and make sure I remember how to do it before I just attempt it live on a video, look like a goof. So just taking a look at our quick handheld blaster, you know, just having fun with Moi. You know, it's not even the morning, it is the morning, it's 3 a.m., but it's not the morning, it's like the night. Depends on how you look at it, you know, if you're Dracula. So here we're trying to fill it. It's not going to work out because more than likely this handle is going to stop it cold. But we also see that the calculation process is also taking a moment. So let's press escape, and we're just going to deal with these. So I mean, that's when I consider my good time in Moi over. When I can't fill it no more, you know, I just lost all my filling. I can't fill it. Sorry, just gotta make terrible jokes, you guys. It's my curse. And let us right click, and you know, having a hotkey to select a loop is is so strange, but having a program where you can't even select an entire loop is even stranger. I'm sure Moi will solve that someday, but that part always blows my mind. Alright, just looking around, you know. Another one we should play with is offset. Offset is always a fun one to look at when it comes to Moi. Let's turn on straight snap. That way we can get some nice angles going. And looking at it from these side views, I also like pressing the arrow keys in order to move things in accordance to the view. I mean, having the hold up arrow is kind of nuts, but let's cut this shape using this curve, and that curve can go. And what I want to do for this shape is create an inset, you know. if you've watched my Blender content, you've seen me create tons of insets, but whenever it comes to Moi, you do it a little different. So here we choose Inset, and then we just click and drag to kind of get started. We want to do it enough that we don't lose what we have. So maybe something like that. Let's right click. And before I actually merge this back, I always got to change up what I do. And let's just hide this object so we're left with just this. And analyzing my views because I just don't know what I'm looking at. Let's do something like that. B, click with a line. So when it comes to cutting with a line, that's something that you used to be able to do in Blender. However, whenever we got the B mesh system, which is now called Fast, that capability was removed. But now you can cut with planes again using exact. I've been meaning to do some content talking about that, but let us just continue talking about Blender while using Moi. That's something you'll only get on this channel. Just kidding. Unless there's some other fanatic out there, but we're just going to mirror that as well, reunion it together, bring everything back, hide our curves, and now we have this as our shape, and we have a pretty big kind of cut in, just randomness. So maybe we don't want that big of a cut in, but maybe something like that. We can just select both these shapes, union them together, and we see that didn't work out. Let's try it again. We select both of them and we union, and it is still two separate objects. So when it comes to unioning things together, I mean, it's not even completely necessary. I don't even know why I'm so obsessed with keeping everything as one mesh. We probably don't even have to do that. I wouldn't do it if I was in Blender, so why am I doing it in Moi? So let's press B and just cut the bottom half off again, and we can just delete that. And let's of course mirror this again, which mirroring is always a chuckle too whenever I come to Moi. I just imagine how great it would be if I had Alt X and could just Alt X my way to success. Instead of even unioning these, we can just keep them separate for now, but we do want to add a fillet. So now we're looking at something like this. So typically, whenever I had Fusion, I would play around with the whole saving as and exporting as 3DM models and sending it to another program, but because now we can just talk about OBJ export, because this program has a really cool OBJ exporter. But there we go, wavefront, that's the part that throws me off. Handheld demo. And so in the viewport we can see what our mesh result's going to look like, and this kind of looks like what you would get if you triangulated in Blender. I mean, simplifying everything to the corner, that's just, I mean to the center like that, that's just terrible. But this is just the default. We can actually get in and choose to divide areas larger than say 2. We can choose to do it with all, which will basically planarize everything. And like I said, I'm not qualified to be discussing Moi at all, but generally whenever I'm using it, I just go in and adjust the settings until I get something close to what I want. We see that lowering the angle increases the resolution with curved areas. So generally you just want to find the limit between what you actually want, which we can get this down to like game resolution level, and it will export it with pretty perfect normals. But I like to export it in a way where we can still play with this over on the other side. So let's divide larger than 0.3 just to really subdivide it and get a good look at what we have. You know, whenever it comes to these areas, it almost inspires my solutions with topology, because I just look at it and I think about, wow, just what is the computer thinking? I mean, I probably shouldn't think that because the computer is probably just trying to survive, but we want to avoid smaller than 0.2. Maybe avoid smaller than 0.1, just to get in here and have some fun with these settings. We could also choose to have just n-gons, which results in a very clean mesh. So you saw those triangles before. There's probably still a few convergences of triangles. This area looks a little weird. I don't know if that's filled in or not, but really getting over analytical whenever it comes to looking at this mesh. So from here, we are just going to change it back to quads and triangles. Let's also look at triangles only. So this would be, I guess, what it would be like if we were trying to get it out for a game. I mean, this is really high poly. We would have to either drag the slider down to really simplify things, or drag it all the way up to get even more. But for us, we're just going to go with quads and triangles and just click OK, allowing us to export this as our model.